Okay, Boker Tov. Today's daf is Kuf Chav Zayin 127. Also, happy Shlosha Shmei Hakbala. We pick up we had started a new Mishnah, and Mishnah shifted
Today's
from the.
daf is 127.
Oh, right, exactly. The years of sorry, Menu. Okay, so the Mishnah from yesterday's daf moved from the double portion per se to identifying who the firstborn son is, and that led to the Gemara's discussion here. A statement of who was it initially? Who made the statement? Rav Ami said that if a tumtum, if a child is born with the genitalia have not descended, or maybe there's a skin covering it up, and then afterwards they descended or the skin tore, and you saw that it was a male, that he does not get a double portion, because it says V'haya habein habechor. When the child is born, it has to be already a bain. It has to be noticeable as a boy. And then the Gemara applied that idea to a ben Sorah Moreh, and then also it would also be true there's like a complicated math, but if a second boy had that situation, it wouldn't impact on the Bechor's size of the Bechor's portion. So all of these cases in which a child who has the status of a son or of a boy, whatever, and has certain halachic implications, has to be that way from the moment of birth, or noticeable that way. So now we pick up, we'll read a little bit from yesterday, from the top of Chuf Chav Zayin Amud Aleph. It says like this, 3 lines from the top. Rav Shizvi says, Af enonimo lishmona. If a baby boy is born on the 8th day, but at that stage it was a tumtum, you couldn't identify male or female, then it becomes identifiable before the 8th day. You do not have a bris milah on the 8th day. It doesn't mean you don't have it. You would have it on the 8th day, but it means the 8th day does not have that weight in the sense that it would override Shabbat. Okay, Da'amakra, because the verse says, Isha ki tazriya v'yalda zachar. If a woman gives forth seed and gives birth to a male, and then and on the 8th day you shall circumcise his flesh of the foreskin. So it's yalda zachar. It has to be male from the time of birth, and therefore, since that was not true here, the weight of the 8th day that it overrides Shabbat would not apply. Rav Shavia says the same drasha from the pasuk, from the same drasha from the same pasuk, but with a different halachic implication. Af ein imot mea leda. If his mother gives birth to this child, who again at that time his identity as male or female was not noticeable, then there is no tumat leda. She does not have any of the impurity that comes with childbirth. If she's bleeding, she would be a nida, but she would not have the impurity that comes with childbirth. Because the verse says, Isha ki tazriya v'yalda zachar. The tamah shivat yamim, that comes even before the brit milah. When she gives birth to a male, she's tameh for 7 days. Ad zachar mishat leda. It has to be noticeable as a male from the time of birth. And since this one is neither a male at the time of birth or noticeable as such, or female, then therefore, according to this, it wouldn't fall to either parsha of the tumah of a male child or a female child, and the mother would not be tameh.
You can't say anything for androgynous then.
Probably would. There's a bigger chiddush here. Here it's even if it clearly was a male, it just wasn't known. It would be like a kal v'chomer by case of androgynous. Absolutely. Okay, so now the Gemara says like this, right? So the Gemara says, 1 minute. So Meisvei. Meisvei says, well, I'll challenge you on this. Hamapelas tumtum vandrogynous. There you go. If a woman gives birth, and the child is a tumtum or an androgynous, or it's funny that really should be like 3 things. If she miscarries, then even if you just don't sort of know whether what the child is, but it really should be hamapeles, kama, or hayoledes tumtum vandrogynous. Let me just check the Rashbam how he reads it here.
You said hamapeles tumtum.
Yeah, I don't know why dafka is hamapelet tumtum, but anyway, if the child is a tumtum or an androgynous, so you don't know, whether it's male or female. So the halacha is, but the same could be if it was a mapelet and you just weren't able to identify it. Anyway, teishev l'zachar v'lana keva. So it's a doubt whether the child is male or female. So she has to have both stringencies. What are both stringencies? A woman who gives birth to a male child is tmeah for 7 days, and then the following 33 days is called dam tohar. Even if she bleeds during the next 33 days, she's tahora. For a female, she's tmeah for 14 days, and even if she bleeds in for the next 66 days, she's tahora. A child, you don't know if it's male or if it's female. You have both stringencies. So what it would be
14 days.
Exactly. So if it were male, you would have, right, day 1 to 7, she'd be tmeah, and then from basically day 8 to day 40, even if she would bleed, she would be tahora. Okay, even if she bleeds, that's dam tohar. That's for a male, and for a female, it's day 1 to 14. She is tmeah. We should probably be using some different color, but okay, whatever. We'll use orange. It's the closest thing to red. Okay, tmeah. Like 78.
Yeah,
Whatever. Anyway, and then from here to day 80. Okay, she's tahora. So this woman, you don't know whether it's a boy or a girl. So you treat it like a girl, and she's tmeah for the first 14 days, and you treat it like a boy, and the special halacha that even if she bleeds, she's tahor is over by day 40. Okay, so that's the halach of teishev l'zachar v'lana keva. But the bottom line is that she is tmei aleda. You just don't know which. There's no halacha that because the child is unidentifiable as male or female, that somehow she's excluded from the category. Yes.
She's tahor for her husband, right? But is she tahor also for like?
No, she cannot eat korbanot until the end of the 40 or the 80 days. That is correct. Okay, so the Gemara says, Tshufta de Rav Sharvia Tshufta. That's a complete contradiction of Rav Sharvia. Even if you cannot identify the child as male or female, nevertheless, it is not excluded from that category, and she has to just take both stringencies. So the Gemara says, Lema te'avi tshufta de Rav Shizvi. Let's say it's also a contradiction of Rav Shizvi, because Rav Shizvi also made the drasha from the pasuk, except he applied it to the law of Brit Milah, to say that Shabbos you don't override Brit Milah. Shabbos does not, Brit Milah does not override Shabbat. But once we're saying that that's not what this pasuk means, this pasuk is not meant to exclude the case of tumtum. So let's say that we also reject Rav Shizvi, and we would say that if a baby was born this way, and then before the 8th day it became clear he was a male, you would do a Brit Milah on Shabbat. So the Gemara, so it would seem, right, if you can't darshan the pasuk one way for the tumah, you can't apply it to the other way for the Brit Milah. So the Gemara says, no. Tana sfuke misafkale. The Tana is uncertain how to read the pasuk. Should we make this drasha or not? Should we say that the pasuk is excluding a child who is not identifiable as male or female? Uluchum, and it's going stringently, which means that when it comes to the question of tum'ah, we're going to say the verse is not excluding such a child, and we're just going to treat him as a doubt, and therefore he's going to have this halacha. Tmeah for 14 days, and then at the end of 40, that special status ends. Because maybe the pasuk that said, v'yalda zachar is not meant to exclude a child who was a tumtum. However, when it comes to Brit Milah, maybe we'll go the other way and say maybe the pasuk is meant to exclude a child who was a tumtum. And therefore, we can't have it override Shabbat if it's possibly being excluded from this verse. So does the phrase v'yalda zachar, right, that's the phrase. The phrase is v'yalda zachar, and there are two halachas about this. V'yalda zachar. So one halacha is v'tam'ah shivat yamim, and the other halacha is ubayom hashmini yimo. So is that phrase v'yalda zachar meant to exclude a tumtum? Okay, so here we say maybe it doesn't exclude a tumtum. So therefore, there's a suffix, and we're going to say she's tme'ah, because maybe a tumtum is not excluded. Then it would be a doubt, and she'd have this stringent way about 14 and 40. But basically, we don't know. Here, however, we say maybe a tumtum is excluded, and therefore we're going to say that doesn't override Shabbat. Okay, we'll be stringent both ways because we don't know whether the pasuk excludes a tumtum. Okay, so that's what the Gemara is saying. So both can be true. She's tme'ah, but we're still going to say it doesn't override Shabbat because maybe this pasuk really does exclude a tumtum. So now let's see. That's very reasonable. But now let's see what the Gemara says. Ihachi says the Gemara, if that were true, that we really don't know whether the pasuk excludes a tumtum or not. Maybe a tumtum is fully excluded. Teshev l'zachar l'nekevu l'nida mibayale. Kasha. And that, if that were true, then even in this case of the tumah, maybe a tumtum would be excluded. Now, if a tumtum was excluded, how would that add to an extra stringency? We're already saying she's tme'ah 14 days, and her special status is over by day 40, right? That's dam tohar. But so would there be an additional stringency if a tumtum was excluded? Yes, because if a tumtum was excluded, she wouldn't have any of the days of tahara. So if a tumtum was excluded, then and let's say she had bled, she'd be tme'ah 7 days, so there would be a leniency that it wouldn't go for 14 days, or let's say she didn't bleed at all. But there would be a stringency that during this, day 15 to 40, if she would have bleed, she'd be tme'ah. So if it's really true that this might exclude a tumtum, then we have all three possibilities right now. Maybe it's a male, maybe female, maybe the category of tumas leda doesn't apply at all. But that's a stringency because there's a stringent component to it. Because if the category of tumas leda doesn't apply, there's no dam tohar. Okay, so then therefore we should have said not only is she tme'ah like a zachar and a nekeva, she should also be tme'ah as a nida, which means no special status of dam tohar. Okay, so since it doesn't say that, it only says zachar nekeva, it sounds like a tumtum is not excluded. Definitely in the category, we just don't know male, female. And therefore, in this case, the Brit Milah should be on day 8, even on Shabbat. That the pasuk does not exclude a tumtum. That's what it sounds like. Because if there was a possibility that excluded a tumtum, again, we should have raised the possibility here that there's no dam tohar, that maybe she's a nida. So that's what the Gemara says. Kasha. All right, we don't know exactly. Maybe it should have said a lanida, right? So the Gemara sort of acknowledges that's a bit of a problem, but nevertheless. Now, I just want to...
But not enough to say tiyufta.
Not enough to say tiyufta. So it still is possible that we can say she has tumas leda, and at the other hand, we're going to be, because it's, at the other hand, maybe a tumtum is totally excluded, and therefore the Brit Milah will not, there will be a Brit Milah once you find out he's male, but it doesn't have the special halacha that it overrides Shabbat. I want to say something about this before we go on, though, because it's very interesting, because the Gemara had no problems with the statements before. For example, that a tumtum wasn't included in the pasuk about v'haya habein habechor, that he doesn't get a double portion, ben sarah mora. What's the difference? If you're excluding a tumtum from those psukim, why are you not excluding the tumtum? Why might you not be excluding the tumtum from these psukim? And I would like to suggest, and maybe I'm being a little anachronistic or whatever, but it's a difference here between sex and gender, right? Zachar is male or female. Ben is boy or girl, right? So man or woman, which is more of a gender category than a sex category. Well, it doesn't say Ben HaZachar. It says Ben, right? So it could be that, because it's a very funny statement of the Gemara. Ache Ben Mishat Leda. It is a ben mishat leda. It couldn't say Achi yivadashu ben mishat leda. Right? It doesn't say it's known that he's a boy. It actually says it's not a boy from the moment of birth. What do you mean it is a boy? You just don't know it, right? But if you're talking about gender, which is more of a societal construct, so if you don't know yet if the child is male or female, so you haven't yet categorized him as a boy, right? If the category boy as a gender construct, right? So he's not, in a certain way, he's not yet a boy. He is a male or a female. You're just ignorant of it. But that's like a fact of, that's a fact of the genitalia and so on. It's not of the biology. It's not a societal fact. So I think that it's possible to say he's not yet a ben because you haven't yet identified what his sex is. So he's not a ben mishas leda, but he is a zachar mishat leda. You're just not aware of it. So that's my nice little modern drash on that. Okay, about the difference between sex and gender. All right. So anyway, now the Gemara continues. Okay. Amar Rava, Tani Kivasi to Rav Ami. We taught like Rav Ami. Which one was Rav Ami? Oh, about he doesn't get the bechor portion if his genitalia is not clear at the moment of birth. Here's the breita. Ben It says V'haya ben habechor lasniya, ben v'lo tumtum, ben and not a tumtum. If it's a tumtum, even if it's discovered later, what his that it's the boy, that it's nevertheless, since it was not that way from the moment of birth, he does not get a double portion. So it says V'haya ben habechor v'lo safek, not if it's doubtful if he's the bechor. So Bishlema ben v'lo tumtum. I understand the halacha of ben v'lo tumtum to Ravami, like Ravami said, since it was not known from the moment of birth that it was a boy, he does not get the double portion. Ela bechor v'lo safek la fukemai. What's it coming to exclude? So it should be pretty obvious. You could come up with a scenario you don't know who's the bechor. So the Gemara says la fukemai. La fukemai d'darish Rava, like Rava said, d'darish Rava. Shtei nashim. A man had 2 wives. She yaldu bet zecharim b'machva, and they both gave birth to 2 boys, and they were in a cave. They were hiding from the non-Jews who know why they were in the cave. Anyway, and at the time they gave birth, everything was dark, and the moms didn't hold on to their kids, and you don't know which one gave birth to, like maybe you know which one gave birth first, or which one, or maybe which mother gave birth first, but then you don't know which boy is which because you got the 2 boys mixed up. Okay, so you got the 2 boys mixed up, and you don't know which one is the firstborn. So Rava said, okay, one of them is entitled to the Chelek Bechor. They don't know which one it is, right? Leah's son is entitled to the Chelek Bechor, but each child doesn't know, is he Leah's son or is he Rachel's son? So what do? So Reuven and Yosef, we'll call those the 2 sons, okay? They basically say, okay, Yosef says to Reuven, I am writing to you a power of attorney. In case I am the Bechor, I am giving you my power of attorney so that you can collect my Bechor portion on my behalf. Okay, and then Reuven goes and he says, he doesn't even have to say the same thing. That's the funny thing, and it's not really because you don't really need to go both ways. Reuven goes to the other brothers and he says, I'm here to collect the double portion. I'm either collecting it on my own behalf, either on the Bechor, or I'm collecting it on Yosef's behalf. But either way, I'm entitled to a double portion. I'm going to collect it, okay? And he goes ahead and collects it. What? Yeah,
because there's 2 brothers, just about everything evenly.
Fine, right, correct. I mean, correct, it's correct. Okay, anyway, so that's what he says. That's how you solve the problem. One of them is the Bechor, you don't know which one, but by giving, the title, power of attorney, you can go ahead and you can get it from the other brothers.
So between Reuven and Yosef, they get 3 portions.
Right. Exactly. I'm going to Rav Papa Rava, so that was what Rava said, which means that you are fundamentally entitled. It's just a suffix. Said Rav Papa to Rava, Vashalach Ravin, but Ravin sent a message from Eretz Yisrael. I asked this question to all of my rabbis, and they didn't give me a response. It's very funny.
The difference is,
he says, let's finish reading. First of all, it's funny he says that he didn't get a response, and then he's going to say the response that he got. They didn't give me an answer, but here's what they said. Okay, Mishum Rav Yanai. Maybe it means they didn't have their own answer, but here's what they relayed in the name of Rav Yanai. That it actually matters what the scenario was in that cave. Hukru l'besofnit arvu. If initially each mother, like it was known, this was the firstborn child, and you knew who was the firstborn child, and then afterwards the babies got mixed up and you couldn't identify who was who. So in that case, then the firstborn is entitled to the double portion, and it's a suffix. So the way you solve it is what you said. You just write a power of attorney. But lo hukru, but let's say it was never identified. As soon as they were born, they were mixed up and nobody ever said, oh, that's my son. It was never known which was the firstborn son, not even for 1 minute. Okay, in that case, they cannot write a power of attorney, and this is the drasha of Bechor v'lo safek. So it doesn't mean to exclude any case of a doubt. It means it's similar to the idea of v'lo tumtum. If from the very moment of birth, it was never known, there was not even 1 minute after birth, and it was known that this is the Bechor, then he loses his status of Bechor. Okay? So that's the drasha of Bechor v'lo safek, when it was never known. So Hadar Uki Rava Amora Le, then Rava put up a Amora. Amora, like the same, there's double use of the word Amora, the same way there's a double use of the word Tana. Tana we often use to refer to the rabbis who are the authorities of the Mishnah, But sometimes the Tana, I sometimes call it a big T Tana and a small T Tana. Sometimes the Tana is the person who repeats the words of the Tanaim. He memorizes them and repeats them. So the Amora is either the, all of the rabbis of the Gemara, or they are the loudspeakers of the rabbis. He goes up to make a drasha in public. He says it to this guy who's called his Amora, and this person then belts it out to the whole crowd. Okay, so Uki Rava Amora Ale. So Rava put stood an Amora in front of him, the Darash, and explicated to the masses the following thing: Dvarim shemarki l'chem tosein biyadi. That thing that I told you before the other day, I was wrong. I made a mistake. Okay, it's not true. They can't always write a harshah. It depends on the case. Here's what it is said in the name of Rabbi Yanai. If the Bechor was originally identified and then it got confused and you didn't know who was who, then he's entitled to the Bechor, portion of the Bechor, and you don't know, so you write a power of attorney. Low Hukru, but if it was never identified even for 1 minute who the Bechor was, in Kosin Harshaz, they cannot write it one to another. Now, one would imagine, you could also imagine a case sort of similar to the Tumtum, which is that it was not recognized at the first moment, but it was somehow recognized later. I don't know, let's say you did DNA testing or something like that, right? So I would imagine it would be the same as the Tumtum case. It doesn't matter, even if it's identified later, it has to have been identified at that first moment. And otherwise, the child does not have a status of a Bechor.
Yeah, but don't we also say Ne'eman Adam Amar Zebini Bechori?
Yes.
Right? So let's say he comes, it wasn't known, like he has some wife in Medinat Sayam.
Right.
And he comes now. I mean,
it wasn't known to us in this town.
Okay,
so it was known to people. Now, I think it's an interesting question about, let's say it was not known to anybody other than the man himself, right? The people in this other town, I don't know, right? He was out in a forest with his wife. Nobody knew. I think it's as long as it was known to somebody, known to the mother, known to the man.
Okay.
It is a good question. To whom does it have to be known?
So
it does not have to be known to everybody, to the people in the town.
But if the father, you can have this scenario. Who's believed? If the father says my Bechor, no one says, do we go by the mother then?
No. It's a special belief. We're going to get to it coming up, but it's a special understanding that a trust that the Torah gave, or manut, a special weight that the Torah gave to the father's testimony about this.
So even if the mother says, I really was with another man,
right?
And then
that's an interesting point. It doesn't matter. So what if she was with another man? You mean she says it's not his kid?
Yeah.
To mamzer, no, you wouldn't believe. No, you would believe the mother. If she said she gave birth before, it wouldn't matter. It could still be the father's firstborn.
Yeah, so she's not.
Yeah. If you had real evidence, but otherwise, no, the Torah doesn't. I'll give special manut to the father's testimony. But we're getting up to that. We haven't seen.
Okay, so you're saying even in the face of contradictory testimony.
That would be correct. Yeah, we're going to see. It's going to come up, right? Pretty much a case like that's going to come up. Not exactly, but okay. Okay. Now, Shalchule b'nei Akra de Agma, the people of this, Akra de Agma, the swamp of Akra or something. The Shmuel. Anyway. I don't know whatever.
Didn't do well in tours for sure.
Yeah, exactly. They sent the following message to Shmuel. Yilamdeinu Rabbeinu, let our master teach us. Hayu muchzakim b'zeh shu b'chor. Okay, there you go, Michael. You see, you anticipated the Gemara. Everybody assumed that a certain person was the Bechor. But Amar Aviv al-Acher Bechor. And the father said, no, this other kid is the Bechor. Okay, so that nobody ever knew about this other kid. He said, yeah, I had this other boy. I had him on Medinat Hayam or whatever. He's the Bechor and so on. So, Mahu, what's the halacha? So, Shalach Lahu, Kosin Harsha Zelazeh. So, he's Kosin Harsha, right? Zelazeh. He treated it like the other case. It's a suffix. The Chazaka establishes one kid as a Bechor. The father's testimony establishes the other kid as a Bechor. So, it's not a problem that it was not Hukar. It was Hukar. We just don't know right now because now we have contradictory evidence. Right at the moment of birth, we'll assume it was known. So therefore, it's a suffix. So they solve it by writing a harsha. So the Gemara says 1 minute. It's not a suffix. Okay. Yes, you have contradictory things. On the one hand, you have a chazaka. On the other hand, you have the father's testimony. But just make up your mind which one of those is going to have more weight in determining the facts. And that actually is a debate of Tanaim that we're going to see. Manavshach, make up your mind. Ika Rabbanan, Tzvirale, if you hold like the Rabbanan, Lishachlu Rabbanan, send like the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan say that you go by the Chazaka and not by the father's if the father's testimony works, if there's no presumption of fact. But if there's already a Chazaka that a certain person is the Bechor, the father's testimony does not work against it. So then just rule that way and say that you go by the guy who was presumed to be the Bechor. If you hold like Rabbi Yehuda, that you always go by the father's testimony, even against a chazaka, Lishluch Luka Rabbi Yehuda. Just rule like Rabbi Yehuda and say go by the father's testimony. So what do you mean that it's a doubt? So the answer is obvious. But it says, Misafkale. Shmuel has a doubt how to rule. Ik Rabbi Yehuda, Ik Rabbanan. He doesn't know whether to go by Rabbi Yehuda, who goes by the father's testimony, or by the Rabbanan, who goes by the chazaka. So since he doesn't know according to either one of those, it's clear who the Bechor is. But Shmuel doesn't know which way to paskin. So therefore, Shmuel says it's a doubt what the halacha is. So you write a harsha. We have something similar to that, talking about like personal status, like nowadays, in cases, for example, about surrogate motherhood. Right? It's still a raging debate. Who do you consider to be the mother? Right? The woman who donated the egg or the woman who carried the baby? So you could say, like, the child definitely has one of them as the mother. You just don't know which one, right? So if you're a posek, you might not know who to paskin like. I can't decide between this psak and that psak. So if one of those mothers was not Jewish, they'll say, well, like, just do a gerus misafek. Now, some posek will say, no, definitely it's a non-Jew. You go by the birth mother. And they'll say, no, definitely by the mother who carried him. Definitely he's a Jew. You go by the mother who donated the egg, or the reverse, depending on the case. So if you go by certain posting, the answer is definite. But another posting might say, well, I can't decide between those two. So play it safe. Just do a gerus misafek, which is often what posting say. So here too, Shmuel says, according to Rabbi Yehuda, the answer is obvious. According to the Rabbanan, the answer is obvious. I just don't know which one to paskin like. So write a harsha, and that's how you'll solve it. Okay, Titania. So the Gemara says like this: Mahi, what is this debate? The time we turn to Brisa. Yakir. Bechor ben hasinua Yakir. He must recognize the Bechor of the hated wife. That's the pasuk in the Torah. So it means that the father's recognizing who the Bechor is of halachic weight. Okay, so Yakirenu la'acherim. He must acknowledge him or make him known to others. A person is believed to say, this is my firstborn son, and that has a special halachic weight more than a normal, one person's testimony. That the Torah gives it as special belief, special weight. In the same way a person is believed to say, this is my firstborn son. He could say about a son of his, he's a Kohen, that actually his mother was a divorcee or a chalutza, a woman who underwent chalitza by yibum. And therefore, nobody knew it, but I'm telling you, the woman I married was a divorcee, and therefore this child of mine is not really a Kohen, he's a halal. Now, how do you make that jump from an issue of dine mominis, of getting a portion of an estate, to affecting somebody's personal status as a Kohen is a big question. Hold on. So we will get back to that in a minute, but first let's just hear what the Rabbanan's position is. Okay? But the sages say, Eino Neman, he's not believed. Now, does that really mean the sages say the father is not believed ever to claim who his firstborn son is? So Amalei Rav Nan Bar Yitzchak L'Rava, Rabbi Yehuda Hainu Dechsiv Yakir. For Rabbi Yehuda that the father is believed, I understand why the Torah says Yakir. El Rabbanan Yakir Lamali. What's the force of the word Yakir for the rabbis? B'tzarech Hekera. So if the child needs to be recognized, meaning if nobody knows who the Bechor is, the father is believed. And that was some cases we had at the end of the day yesterday. So everybody agrees the father is believed to say who the Bechor is when there's general doubt. The question is the father believed to say who the Bechor is against a general perception that somebody else is the Bechor, against a chazaka? Okay, that's the debate of Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim, and that was the case that was presented to Shmuel. There was a chazaka that one kid was a Bechor. The father identified another kid. There, Rabbi Yehuda says, even there, the father is believed to say who the Bechor is, and the Chachamim say no. If there's a presumption in the chazaka, he is not believed against that.
I'm not understanding why. Meaning, like, if this isn't like fact, there's a difference between chazaka, fact, and if someone saw it, it's not a chazaka, then it's no.
Right.
There's no question.
Right.
But if there's just a chazaka, I mean, it's like, who knows? I don't know. That's what the rumor says, right? That's what we mean.
Well, no.
So then, but the father's saying, I have definite information. The rumor is not indefinite information at all.
I understand,
right? So
but I understand. First of all, a chazaka is not just. There's a gap between, like, I don't know, it's just a rumor just saying that there's a chazaka. Like we saw before, a chazaka is everywhere it goes, everybody calls him, oh, he's the head of the family, oh, he's whatever. He's he's generally treated and assumed to be in the community as the bechor. It's not just a question of rumor. Okay, it's not hearsay. That's very different than a chazaka. Okay, chazaka is that is the way he is accepted within society and treated within society. Now, it is true the father has special information, but he's still an Eid Echad. And if somebody came and, I don't know, there was a 1-8 and he was and he says, I was the doctor and I was there when he was born or whatever, although I don't know, you don't know what the father was doing somewhere else, whatever. But anyway, it would just be Eid Echad. Eid Echad against chazaka generally doesn't work.
Well, how does chazaka get there? Meaning, like, if it's 2-8, it wouldn't be a chazaka anymore, right? It'd be fact. Or is
correct. That is correct. So, okay. But the father is not 2-8. So that's the question. What is the weight of the father's testimony? Okay, the chazak isn't hearsay. The chazak is based on a lot of circumstantial and ongoing evidence about how this person is seen in the community and in society and by his family. Okay, and that creates the chazaka. And then the question is, what weight do you need to override that? So one person's testimony might not be enough, or normally it wouldn't be enough unless the Torah gave it special weight. So that's the question. How much special weight did the Torah give the father's testimony? Okay, so the Gemara says, now, so when do you need to give belief according to the Rabbanan? In what cases do you believe the father? I am going to finish, and then you'll ask your question. Okay, so the Gemara says the Gemara says 1 minute. So according to the Rabbanan, the father is believed in a case when there's no chazaka to say this is my bechor. So the Gemara says 1 minute. If there's no chazaka that this is, and the father is believed to say this son is my bechor, why does he need special believability? He could accomplish that even if he wasn't believed. How could he accomplish that? So the Gemara says, so the relevance of identifying this kid as the bechor when there's no chazaka is that he'll get double. So the Gemara says, so even if the son was some stranger, so he could have just given him this extra portion as a gift. So here the father is, and the father is saying, this kid is my bechor. So the Gemara is saying, why do we need the Torah to tell me he's believed? He should be believed based on that basic principle known as migo. Since if I wanted this kid, who was, maybe you're doubting he's the bechor. If I wanted him to get that extra portion, I could have given it to him anyway. I could have just gifted it to him. So since I would have been able to have him get that double portion by gifting it to him, I should be believed when I say that he's a bechor. So why do you need the Torah to believe me to say he's the bechor, since I should be believed on the principle of migo? You understand the point? The whole relevance of being a bechor is that he gets an extra portion. Well, I could just give it to him anyway right now. So therefore, believe me anyway based on migo. Why do you need the special fact that the Torah believes me? So the Gemara says, after, right now I'm saying he's the bechor. Okay, it's true. Right now, even without the special sort of weight the Torah gave my testimony, that would be believed that he would get a double portion based on the property I have now, because I could have given him that portion right now. But let's say after I make that statement, I win the lottery. Okay? So my migo doesn't work for all those extra money I gave the lottery. In order for him to get now a double portion of that, I have to once again say he's a bechor, right? When I say right now he's a bechor. If the Torah didn't believe me, the only reason you would believe that statement was because let's say right now I have $100,000 to my name, okay? And I've got, 4 kids or 3 kids. So if I'm saying he's a bechor, I'm saying he's going to get an extra $250,000 and the other $750 will be divided amongst 3 kids, right? Okay, so I would say, look, believe me when I say he's a bechor, because even if he weren't a bechor, I could give him $250,000 right now. So therefore, when I say he's a bechor, you should believe me. Fine, we'll believe you to the extent that you could have accomplished that end goal and given him $250,000. So your statement that he has a bechor is believed to award him $250,000 because that's what you were prepared to give him right now. Okay? Now I win $100 million. Okay? So, and then Ruvain, let's say, wins $100 million, then he drops dead a minute later. Okay? So the kid doesn't get an extra portion in that $100 million.
Well, you already said you were the bechor.
But that was only believed with the weight of what he could have done at that moment. If there was no special belief that the Torah gave him, the weight of that statement only had weight because of the migo, of what the father could have done anyway. But the father couldn't anyway have given at that moment when he said it 2 weeks ago, he could not have given him,
Right, but when he won the lottery, he could have done it.
But he didn't say then he's a bechor.
But he didn't have to because he said it before.
No! That statement only has weight in court by the force of the migo. by the force of what he could have accomplished, even had it not been believed. That was the weight it received in court. Why does it get weight more than it could have had at that time? Okay, that's the principle of nego. The only weight it has was the weight of what it could have done at the moment.
So you're saying he didn't have enough time to then say, this is my bechor.
Yeah, saying this is my
for...
son bechor, if the Torah doesn't believe you, then you will have to constantly be repeating, he's my bechor, every time you earn more money. But you'll have to wait to the minute before you die to say he's my bechor, and then you might be dead and have not got a chance.
So I can't say I hereby declare him a bechor for anything I get from now and forever?
No, because you don't have the power to give him anything you get in the future. So your statement doesn't have weight for that, except that the fact that the Torah believes you. Because the Torah believes you that he's the bechor, once you say it, it's believed going forward. But if your statement only had weight because of your migo, because of what you could have gifted, then the only weight it has is what you could have gifted at the moment you made the statement. Okay, and that's why the Torah had to believe the father that's a bechor, because otherwise that statement would have had no power on property the father would have gotten after the fact. So now the Gemara says 1 minute. The Gemara says, Uler Meir da Amar Adam Makna Tova Shalom Bal Olam. The Gemara says, Yakir Lamli. But according to Rav Meir says you can gift something in the future. So since right now I could say I am gifting to this kid, like 20% or whatever of all the property I have now and I'll get later. So that's effectively the same as saying then that would work. So when I say he's a bechor, I don't need the Torah to believe me because I could achieve the same thing even if for property I'll get in the future.
I thought that was only a parenthetical Davidi de Asu.
Okay, so that's obviously so. Rav Meir doesn't work for all things. So the Gemara could have answered that, but instead the Gemara gives a different answer. The Gemara says, that the person can only be makna davar shalom bala olam if, when it comes to the world, the person's in a position to be able to actually gift it as well. But if somebody basically says, I am transferring to you, 20% of all the property I own now and I will get in the future, and then when he gets it in the future, he is in his deathbed throes, and he's not of sound mind to be able to transfer it, then it doesn't work. Even for Rabbi Meir, when you can give something that you'll get later, it's only if when you get it later, you are in a position to actually give it at that time as well. If when you get it later, you are not of sound mind and you are not in a position to give it then your gift from earlier did not work. So the bottom line about all of this is that even if the Torah had not believed the father to say, this is my son, the bechor, he would be believed up to the extent that he could have gifted him those items. He could have gifted him that at the moment of making the statement. But that statement would not have been helpful for property he would have had later. And therefore, the Torah has to believe the father that it's bechor, and then that works for any property he gets at a later time.
Go back to my rumor thing. I mean, I'm just looking at the Rashbam. It's like you move second in the bottom of Chav Zayin and Aleph. He says, Bava Edim Shem Edin Cha'un Olad Kodem Lechav, not Edim, Din Kainin Avnemani, when we believe them. El Kol Ba'alma. It sounds like a rumor.
Yeah, but that's not stam. There's different types of rumor. I mean, you're right that word is funny, but he refers to the earlier Gemara, Havukara Buchra, which is exactly as I described it. So a rumor is, did you hear somebody was a firstborn? That's not a chazaka. A chazaka is an impression that is created through the way society and where the person has behaved and society behaves regarding this person. Now, let me go to the other point of the Gemara. Okay, so there you have. So what we have is, for the Chachamim, the Torah believes the father that's bechor, and the reason you need to believe the father, even though the father could gift his property, is because relating to property the father doesn't have at that time. Okay, so the Torah believes the father that this is the bechor, but that's when it's not going against already presumptions and established fact. If it is going against presumptions of what the reality are, so the Chachamim say that he's not believed, and Reb Yehuda says even there he's believed. Now, so that's one question. To what degree is the father believed to say that this is my son, the bechor? Is it against a chazaka or not? But another interesting point is that the Gemara said that according to Rabbi Yehuda, the father is believed to say that my son is a ben grusha or a ben chalutza. Why is it? Just because you're believed in monetary matters, why are you believed to say that your son actually has a puzzle status? So Tosfos has a very interesting answer to this question. He says, imagine, Michael, you will appreciate this. This is similar to your question. He says, imagine that, the father says, here's a father, he's got like this 20-year-old kid, Okay, and then he says about his new baby boy who's 1 month old, this is my bechor. So the Torah believes him that the baby boy is his bechor and gets a double portion. But what is he saying? That what must be the case there for about a 20-year-old kid who was born to his wife 20 years ago? How could the only way that can't be the man's bechor?
Well, we know this is his wife.
We know it's his wife. We know it's his wife.
We know this
before a world of adoption, what was the other possibility? Adultery. So if the Torah is going to believe you that this is your bechor, then what does that mean about this 20-year-old kid who was born to your wife 20 years ago? You're saying he's a mamzer.
Yeah.
So therefore, so you see implicit in the Torah believing you who's a bechor, the Torah will also believe you that this kid is a mamzer. So therefore, you must be that you're believed even on, at least according to Rabbi Yehuda, that you're believed against already established fact or already perceived fact, that you're even believed relating to personal status. Now that's quite harsh. Now it goes that not only are we going to believe that the kid isn't a Kohen, we're going to believe that he's mamish a mamzer. Okay, so that's one way Tosa says we can jump from the idea of bechor to the idea of personal status. That by identifying a certain kid as a bechor, you might be implicitly making a statement about the older kid. All right, is that sort of clear? Yes.
It doesn't have to be the first child out of the womb, though, of that woman.
No, that's only for bechor for Kohen, but bechor for the double portion is about the first child of the man. Okay, so that's one dress.
So I'm sorry, the Rabbanon dispute this and say that he wouldn't be.
Yeah, it's not at all clear the rabbis agree, especially according to the way Tosfos understands it, because that's only is if you believe him against what's already a chazaka. According to the Rabbanon, you only believe him in a completely neutral case. So they would not at all necessarily be this. Okay. Anyway, Tosfos has another thing that maybe it's just like. Just sort of like an analogy. Well, no, we're just going to assume if the Torah believes him about his son about one thing, it'll believe him about his son about another thing, about an issue of personal status. But this other answer is more ingenious. Okay. So that is about the father being believed about the status of his son. Number one, does it work even against a presumption of society? And number two is, does it even work even about a personal status and not just about a question about bechor and getting a double portion? Okay, so now the Gemara continues in this vein. Okay, so that sounds like Rabbi Yehuda. People assumed that somebody was a bechor, and the father said, no, this other kid is the bechor. The father's believed, even against the chazaka. He is presumed to not be the bechor. And the father said, no, he is the bechor. He's not believed. Like, make up your mind. Is the father believed against the chazaka or not believed against the chazaka? So the Gemara says, Reish Rabbi Yehuda, but say for Rabbanan, fine. This bright does not one opinion. The first part of the bright that says the father is believed against the chazaka is Rabbi Yehuda. The second part that says the father is not believed against the chazaka is the Rabbanan. Now, I want to say that there's possibly another way to read it. It could be that even the Rabbanan only say he's not believed against the chazaka when you're effectively stealing the bechor from a person. People saw Reuben was a bechor, and the father says, no, Shimon is a bechor. So the Rabbanan say, we don't believe him. But let's say there was no other brother around that we assumed was the bechor. We just, for some reason, this was your kid, but somehow we always thought there was some older brother somewhere. We don't know who. We just somehow were in the impression that this was a kid you had later in life. We assumed, probably he's got some older brother somewhere. But it's not like we assumed a particular person was the bechor. So maybe you could say that's different. I could be believed to change this kid's status if I'm not taking the bechor away from a person who's already been identified. Right? So that is the difference. In the first case, you assumed X was a bechor, and you said that X is not, it's Y. We don't believe him against the chazaka. In the other case, you just assumed Y was not. It didn't say you assumed somebody else was. And therefore it says we do believe the father. So I have a way that I think you could read this even according to the Chachamim, but the Gemara actually says that the two halves of the Breita are the debate of Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim. Okay, so now the Gemara says like this. Rabbi Yochanan, Amar benihu, v'chazar Amar avdihu, eino neman. If a person comes into town with a young man with him, and he says, yeah, this is my son. And then later he says, no, really, he's my servant. So he's not believed to say he's my servant, because if he were your servant, you never would have called him your son. Now, we have to pause here for a moment, because I did not get a chance to explore this further. But it sounds like if he did not start, and the next thing is going to be also clear, that if he did not start by saying, this is my son, and he just started by saying, this is my servant, he would be believed. But like, I don't get it. Like, I walk into town with a young man and I say, this is my servant. Not my servant, actually. I'm already toning it down. My slave. I say, this is my slave. I'm believed. Like, maybe this person is a total, like anybody's ever seen the movie 12 Years a Slave, right? You know, how do you know this person isn't a total free man? Maybe I just hired him in the previous town as an attendant. And now I walk into this town and I say, he's not an attendant, he's my slave.
Does it make a difference what the other person is saying?
Well, first of all, what is the other person saying? But that's true even in this story. Is the other person saying I'm a son or a slave? But the fact is that there seems to be an assumption here that I'm believed to say he's my slave. Like, I'd like to know why that is. You know, I don't understand how I'm believed to say about another human being that he's my slave. Anyway, that's a pretty big question. I don't know the answer. I have to look into that more. But here, it sounds like maybe I would be believed to say he's my slave. But if I started by saying he's my son, I'm not. Because I wouldn't say about my slave that he's my son. Avdihu v'chazaram or b'nihu. If I start by saying he's my slave and then I say he's my son, ne'eman. Then I believe by my second statement that he's my son. How does that override?
How he treats his son.
Well, that's what I mean. No, because when I said he was my slave, I meant he's such a good son. He attends to me just like a slave. Okay, so therefore, meaning it would be possible you would call your son your slave. Okay, or possible your son would say, "Who am I, your slave?" Okay, if you ever have teenage kids, you know about that. Anyway, okay, but it's not possible you would call your slave your son. The opposite would be true if you're going at the what do you call it? The tax house, the import house. So you would have to pay taxes on your slaves. You don't have to pay tax on your son. Okay, so your slave is part of your property. So if you say he's my son when you're meeting the tax collector, and then you say, oh, he's really my slave, you're believed because you would have said he's your son to get out of taxes. But
even back then they had deductions for kids.
There you go. Not deductions. You just didn't have to pay taxes on your kids. Okay. Because there's a reason you would have lied. Okay. Obviously you're not. Why would you have said he's your slave if you weren't your slave? Basic. Now I'll ask you this. This young man was attending to you like a son would, meaning not in a completely servile way. Okay, Bava Amar Benihu, and you said he's my son. And then you said he's my slave. You're not believed. Okay, that's similar to what we said before.
I'm sorry, this is a katan or a gadol makes no difference.
Doesn't make a difference. That's similar to what we said before. Hayamisham shok to Eved, if he was attending to you like a slave. Ubava Amar Avdihu, and you said he's my slave. And then you said my son. He's not believed. Now that's not like we said before. We said if you said son at the end, you are believed. That what you meant was initially when you said slave, it means he attends to me like a slave, which is what he was doing. Okay, but you would still be believed at the end when you said he's my son. No. There, when you first said he's your slave and then your son, you're not believed. That's when you said this is a slave that's worth 100. Okay, my maitzer mea. What does that mean? Maitzer mea. Maitzer avda mea zuze. I don't know exactly where the mates are. He bounds. He's bound. Like his boundaries are. How do they translate the word mates are there? Yeah, whatever. Anyway, it means that people are willing to pay up to $100 for him.
You don't mean like he's as good as 100 other slaves?
No, me'azuze. Anyway,
so he's saying that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's so we're saying
he's worth 100 zuz, or he's saying worth 100.
No, 100 zuz. Oh. Okay. So anyway, so the point is that when you say slave and then son, you would be believed to say son, except if you had slave and you attached a dollar value to it. Oh, this is my slave. He's good. He's worth a good $100. In that type of a case, you would not actually completely turn him into property and commodify him if he weren't really a slave. And then you're not believed afterwards to say he's your son. But if you stop and say slave and then son, you can say slave, man, that's how he serves me. Okay, but you didn't mean it literally. Again, what bothers me most about all of this is that you're believed to say that somebody is your slave. Like, what is the context, or what does the other guy say? All right. Shalach le Rav Abba Rav Yosef. Rav Abba sent to Rav Yosef. Avdi ganafta. Rumer lo ganafti. If somebody, you say, Michael, you stole my slave. And Michael says, no, I didn't. So Mativo Etzacha. So what's he doing by you? So Michael says, Atam Machartali, you sold him to me. Atam Nasatali Matan, you gave it to me as a gift. Now, you might remember that because slaves are move themselves, the idea that we say that if a person's holding on to something, does not apply to slaves, because the fact that he's in Michael's yard doesn't mean that Michael's not really possessing him in the same way that his holding on to him proves it's his. The slave might have taken a walk over to Michael's yard. So the case has to be here, either one of two cases where Michael's holding him is a presumption of ownership. Either the slave is a baby and can't walk, and he's in his bassinet or something, or the slave has been spending 3 years at Michael's house. We go back to that old stuff we did about 3 years being chazaka,
3 years a slave.
by 3 years a slave. Okay, so it's a case where him being in Michael's house is a presumption that it belongs to Michael, and I'm still claiming that Michael's lying. So Michael says, no, listen, he's mine. I would be believed, but I'll tell you what, though, just to make you happy, with Soncha, if you want, you're so insisting that he's yours, he shove the toe. Go ahead, take an oath. If you're willing to swear that he's your slave, you can go ahead and swear and take him. Vinishpa. So I go ahead and I take an oath. Michael can't say, wait, I changed my mind. I thought you weren't going to take me up on it. No, once I've taken the oath, you made that commitment. Now I get to take him back. Okay? So the Gemara says
that also calls into question like a smachta,
Yeah, okay. So my kamash Milan. Now let's see. Why is that a chiddush? Tanina, we've already learned that if you are willing to change the parameters of a court case and say if you do this and this, because it's not just stam a deal. It's like based in context, shvua sometimes is effective. Here it wouldn't be effective. But if you're willing to change the rules, then you're bound by that. How do we know that? Because it says, Amarlo, neman alai abba, neman alai avicha, neman alai shlosha roei bakar. If Michael and I have a court case, and Michael says, look, normally, your father and my father wouldn't be kosher to be in a beis din, or these cow herds wouldn't be kosher to be in a beis din because, they're, gazlanim or whatever, shnak gazlanim, but other things are not ostim. Anyway, so, no, I don't think it's gazlanim because, 1 minute. They're not Biki and Bedin. Okay, Gazlan might not work. Anyway, the Rashbam discusses it. But anyway, we'll take these people that normally won't be kosher, but it's okay. I'll sign a waiver. I agree to have them on my beis din. So that works. You're bound by that. So if you change the rules, if both sides sort of agree to change the rules, you're bound by it. So the same is true here. So it's not a chiddush. So what's the chiddush, says the Gemara? Okay, Rabbi Meir Omer Yachal Lachzerba. Rabbi Meir says that even if you make that agreement, you can change the rule. You're not bound by it. The Chachamim Omer Minu Yachal Lachzerba. The Chachamim say you can't change the rules. So presumably we go by the Chachamim. So this is just an idea that in a court case, if both sides agree, they can change the rules. Okay, so the same is true about the Shvua. What's the chiddush here? So the Gemara says no. HaKamash Milan. This is teaching us to be etein lecha machlokas v'lacha kidibe Chachamim. Number one, we rule like the Chachamim, not like Rabbi Meir, that you can change the rules. But number two, etein lecha machlokas. What's the point? Some want to say that maybe it only works to change the rules if you say, we'll let my father be on the beis din, and if he gets you off and he says you don't have to pay, you don't have to pay. You can keep what's already in your pockets. That's one degree of a chiddush. But can you change the rules so much to say, my father can be on the beis din, if he says I have to pay, I will pay. Etein lecha. Not just that you won't have to pay me, that we can keep things the way they are, but that their decision will be so powerful that will even have the power of forcing me to have to pay up, even taking money away from me. So there's a debate how to read when that works. So what the Gemara is saying here is that we say to the most extreme. If you agree to those new rules, A, we rule like the Chachamim that it works and you can't back out. And number two, it's even true even if it's to make somebody pay. And that's the case here. Michael said, Dov, take a shvua. I took a shvua. Now Michael is going to have to pay, and he's going to have to give me the slave. So that's what we see. We rule that those are binding, and even binding in the case of etein lecha. Okay, we'll end with this for now. Right.